better to do both. Then you'd be guaranteeing it, right? That's what I mean, that's sort of what I did. I have the box, and then I have I built a wooden frame that I put around me. It's like it has hinges on it, so it's almost like a room. Then I can hang it with blankets and stuff. So yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of argument about these little boxes that they do, right? They sell them online. They're not expensive, and they seem to work well for some people. But you got to remember, even if you use a box, it's not blocking your back. The mic has to have access to you, and so you have to have something behind you, right? So you got to have something behind you that will absorb sound. So if you do a box, just keep that in mind. So it should be near a wall, or again, like I've built a little enclosure to hang behind me, something like that. I don't want to get into too long of an answer because I could talk about this for 15 minutes, right? But basically, home studio is the thing, right? So you're going to have a home studio. Like, what is the home studio for? There's really two things the home studio can be for. It can be for auditions, or it can be for recording professional stuff. If you want to do auditions, then you can get a USB condenser mic. I had a CAD. Everybody's using these Yetis, but they are not quite professional grade. If you want to really record any jobs from home, unless it's just like a real low end, there's some low end jobs out there that they don't care as much, like maybe some indie games or some audiobooks. But otherwise, if you're going to record actual work from home, and now obviously things have switched to working from home, but the lowest end condenser mic that you can get that's good, and I have it, it's the Rode NT1A, right? That's around $200-300, and that's the bottom end of being in professional grade, right? And then there's the Shure SMB7, and then the Neumann, which is getting towards $1,000, right? So it really depends on how serious you are and how much money you have at the time. But then with these powerful, these better mics, they need to have phantom power, or a preamp, you call it, because they're XLR mics. They're not straight to USB. So you get a preamp, which is also basically a converter from the XLR to USB. So you got to buy one of those too, and they're $200. So, maybe $500 minimum if you're going to do Rode with one of those. And honestly, I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference between the Rode and the Shure SMB7, but the Neumann definitely is a step up from that. But then, like I said, that's almost $1,000. So, and there's other recommendations out there. There's like the Sennheiser thing. There's a shotgun mic that's normally used for film, but they found that people like it for voiceover, but it's also like $1,000. So it really depends on what you do. But also, if you're going to do home studio, you have to make sure you have some way of dampening the sound, the echoes, and things like that. I have a foam box that I built that goes around my mic, and then I have basically a backdrop of blankets that I hang behind it, and I just make my own little studio in my house. But so there you go. I think I've gone on enough about that. See how I want to answer this. Because the way voice acting works, generally speaking, is it doesn't work the same way as film or TV acting, where you can find public casting calls. A lot of the stuff that you or I might want to be in are usually on private lists, either through your agent, or a studio, or a director. And that's really, it's just sort of a career thing, honestly. The way to get started really is two things I would do. You can go to these sites like Voices123 or Voices.com, and you can get these really low-end voice gigs. It's good in a sense because you can get some credits, you can get some experience, but they're kind of bad for the industry because they drive the prices down for acting, and people don't get paid as much as they should, and stuff like that. So there's kind of, in the community, there's this sort of conflict about it, like, this is good, I don't know. So I would recommend going to that. Plus, there's a lot of indie games, and there's a big indie game community on, I think it's called itch.io. And there's also on Twitter, there's a ton of indie game makers that are publishing like screenshots of their games and stuff like that. And so I would look for that and maybe talk to those people directly because you have a better chance of doing that than going through a big audition, thing on, especially if it's on Voices or something like that. There could be 500. I'm going to tell you, I had a friend who was doing a web show. They were doing a web series that was no pay, right? He put it on LA Casting, a casting site, and in one day he got 1,500 responses for a no-pay web series. So there's a lot of people, and voiceover is not much different, right? Especially now because people can have home studios; they don't have to go anywhere. So people want voices. So there's a lot of things. So you have to kind of buckle in and say, well, even if I get auditions, that doesn't mean I'm going to get any roles because there's a lot of competition. So one thing I am going to talk about more when I do the class is how to make networking connections where you can kind of bypass the filter and get to the short list to being cast instead of being on the long list. You should not make a voice reel until you had other training. A lot of people are like, oh, the first thing I need to do is make a voice reel, right? First thing is get your training done first. It's sort of like you want your headshot to match what you really look like. You have a headshot you submit to casting directors for film and TV, and if you come in and you look significantly different from that, then that is seen as deceptive, right? And then you've wasted their time. So the same thing with the demo. You might have a real good director and coach who can coach you through these voices for a few lines in a demo, but are you able to do those voices consistently outside of the demo? And so it's really dangerous to do a demo too early because somebody might say, hey, do this voice, and then you come in and you can't necessarily do it for a character for 2 hours. So you really need to be developed enough before you put yourself out there. I do demos myself with my students, right? Because I have a home studio. And so what I do, this is how I do it, is over time as I'm teaching them, I notice what their really good voices are, right? And I'll make a list of these are kind of the voices that we've done really well with. And then I'll make a second list of voices that complement those, are different from those. Okay, well, we've got a young teenage girl, but do we have a mature middle-aged woman? Or we've got a jokey, funny little fairy, but do we have a serious murderer, or whatever. So I look for contrast because one thing you do want to, and it really depends now because demos can be very targeted. You can be like, well, this is what I do. I do teenage girls and have a bunch of those. Or you could have a more diverse, usually diverse is still the way most people go with their main demo. So that's what I do. I have a list of these are things I'm good at, but what do I need to complement it, and work on some things that work well to complement those voices. And of course, a demo should always be a minute, around exactly a minute long, not too much longer, not too much shorter. Though there are 30-second demos out there, just depending on what the clients want. Really, you want to find somebody that is reliable in terms of they're not trying to rip you off. Basically, it's the same thing with new actors come, and there's all these classes that are offered. And there's especially the trap of these fake agencies. They're like, oh, okay, we'll take you in, we'll be your agent. But now you have to go to our photographer and get new headshots, and now you have to go to our acting class and blah, blah, blah. And they're just getting kickbacks from that, right? So I really think that the best way to go for any of these coaches is to get personal recommendations on somebody, right? I don't know if he's doing them right now, but a great guy for that is JB Blanc. I worked with him on Kickheart. He's great, but I get referrals from people who have taken that or just read reviews or whatever, but so many of them will have these flashy websites, and it's really just one of those things you're going to pay to get some mediocre quality stuff that maybe everybody already knows. So I would be more leery of that, especially in Los Angeles.